What is your Myers-Briggs type? How do you handle stressful situations? If someone were to ask you to describe your personality, what would you say about it? We often look for answers in personality quizzes or tests. All it takes is a really quick Google search and maybe even opening up a magazine just to find some simple personality tests and quizzes. Now, these can be really fun and silly to take, or they can reveal a shocking amount of information about your personality. Researchers also use personality tests to study people and connect certain traits to certain behaviors. So what are personality tests? Personality tests use different types of data to analyze and measure people and their personalities. While many tests are completed in the form of surveys, researchers have created a wide variety of personality tests with different tasks and different scenarios, along with different amounts of validity. Some of the most famous personality tests include the Myers-Briggs test, the Big Five, the Rorschach test, Hexaco Personality Inventory, and the Winslow Personality Profile. Personality tests have different goals. Some want to determine what people are thinking unconsciously, while others want to measure the level of certain traits in an individual. All of these tests look at how people interact with the world, and they aim to advance personality psychology. So, what data is actually used on personality tests? How do we score these personality tests? Well, in general, we use a few different types of data, and I'm going to go over those right now. The first one is called self-reported data. No one knows you better than you, right? When you're taking a personality test from your bedroom and you have to answer a whole bunch of questions, you're using something called self-reported data. Now, this data may sound like, I always put others ahead of myself. Or maybe you score a 5 for, I tend to get sentimental, even with people I've just met. So self-reported data is really easy to obtain, but it's actually not the best type of data to use in clinical studies or scientific research. You might be asking why. Well, it's because it's biased. See, people can fake their answers on tests or maybe not be able to see themselves objectively, because who's really going to agree with the statement, I enjoy making others feel pain? The second type of data is called observer-reported data. There are ways to gather a person's data without their bias or input. See, scientists can collect data through observations and using their findings to make conclusions about the people in the study or even a larger group of people. Within observer-reported data, there's actually two different types: naturalistic observation and artificial observation. When researchers conduct naturalistic observation, they don't actually tell the people that they're being watched. Now, the opposite goes for artificial observation. Scientists usually prefer naturalistic observation because people usually do act differently whenever they know that they're being watched or recorded. If I say, I'm going to come watch you sleep, are you going to clean your room? Are you going to maybe not drink a glass of whiskey before bed? Are you going to act differently? All kinds of things change when we tell people that we're going to watch them. But the trouble is that sometimes observing people without telling them can be a little difficult and maybe a little immoral. Like, there's actually a test that observed how long it takes a man to use a urinal depending on how many other people are in the room. The third type of data is called test data. Scientists collect test data by setting up a test. Now, the test will often set up subjects in a scenario and then give them a choice to make. The researchers watch the subjects as they take the test and then record how they behaved. Test data may connect certain traits to certain behaviors or certain behaviors to other behaviors. The fifth type of data is called life data, also known as longitudinal research. Now, there are many obstacles that arise whenever you take on data on personality. Genetics and environment, these all can influence someone's behavior or their decision-making processes. People who grew up in a small town, for example, may behave differently than people from a large city, even if they tend to be overall agreeable or neurotic or whatever other big 5 personality trait that someone might be. Life data takes these factors into consideration and looks at personality data throughout time. The fifth type of data is something called projective data, where you give someone a projective test. If you've ever taken an ink blot or a Rorschach test, you've taken something called a projective test. Now, projective tests were developed out of theories that people hide unconscious thoughts or behaviors. These tests are meant to bring out those unconscious thoughts into the open so that we can watch them. Now, the Rorschach test is one of the first examples of something called a projective test. A psychologist shows an ambiguous drawing, something like an ink blot, to a patient and asks them to immediately tell the doctor what comes to mind. The answer can sometimes be very revealing and surprising. An example of another projective test is something called the thematic apperception test, also known as the TAT test. In this test, the psychologist shows a patient a series of scenes and then will ask the patient to tell a story about what is happening in the scene. The patient's response, or whatever story they come up with, can give the psychologist a look into their inner feelings and how they perceive certain situations. situations. All of these different types of tests and ways that we gather data have advantages and disadvantages to them. Some tests are easier to create, and some data is easier to collect. Bias from the subjective or the researcher can also have an impact on what the test reveals about the subjects or different groups of people that they're studying. Keep these potential biases in mind as you take your own personality tests. As I close on this video, I want to ask you, why do we make personality tests? Personality tests are definitely fun and silly, and some of them don't have any scientific validity. But for the most part, researchers use them for pretty important purposes. Psychologists are kind of like engineers. They want to build better people, and they want to create a world more lawful with positive citizens. So you can build something more effectively if you have great tools, right? Personality tests and quizzes are just a few of those tools. They give insight into someone's personality and then can potentially predict someone's behavior. Now, the connections between certain traits and certain behaviors can help all of us spot people that may be beneficial to our lives or may be harmful. And in another video, I'm going to be talking about how to spot people who may be bad influences in your life and how to stay away from them. I absolutely love learning psychological stuff that I can immediately use to improve my life, and I hope to share that enthusiasm with you. So, as I end this video, go ahead and take a personality test today. I actually have one in the link below that I've developed that combines 3 of the main personality quizzes into one test that you can take in under 10 minutes. It's great for self-reflection and increase your self-awareness. The more you know about how you score on personality tests, the more you can see how you fit into the world, what your strengths and weaknesses might be. Your results may also be able to help you predict your own behavior and prevent yourself from behaving in unfavorable ways. So if you like this video, feel free to watch some of the other videos in the personality series that I created. And if you want to learn more about your own personality, again, that link is in the description. You can take that 3-in-1 personality quiz absolutely free. You don't even have to enter your email. I'm also going to try to predict some things about you, like your political stances, your relationship style, and even your health. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I really hoped you learned something from this video. Hope to see you in the next one.